Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. This episode is sponsored by GrowX Labs. Quick question. When you're leading a team or growing a business, who helps you think clearly? GrowX Labs offers executive decision support, real-time access to a trusted strategist who helps you navigate tough calls, leadership blind spots, and everything in between. No fluff, no long-term commitment, just fast, honest insight from someone who gets it. If you're a founder or exec and need a sounding board, go to growxlabs.com/mark. That's grwxlabs.com/mark and book a discovery call today. When I think about my life, and especially the past 6 years, I started this podcast and it kind of got planted into my head that I should at least consider doing it. And as you can see, almost 200 episodes later, I'm doing it. And I've just kind of developed an attitude as I've gotten older to seize the moment a little bit. And if I want to do something, go for it and not let anything hold me back. And if you have listened to my story or have listened to enough episodes, you'll know that there were actually some things kind of holding me back for a long time. And I finally worked through that a little bit. And now here we are. I'm doing Mark My Words. And when I get a guest inquiry into my inbox, like I did recently from Jake Didinsky, it automatically just really stands out. It's like, this is a guest I have to have on my show because while there are many things that are different between him and I, there are a lot of things that are also kind of similar. And Jake was born with mitochondrial disease, diagnosed young, and I will let them explain a little bit more about that because I'm not an expert. But let me just quickly introduce, because there is a lot of ground to cover. Jake has a lot of interest. Let's just put it that way. I mean, first of all, he is the CEO of the Lobo initiative, also CEO of the Talk About It company. They are a DJ. Let me just scroll down here a bit. So they are a founder of Lobo, a nightclub event series in 8+ cities. They have served on Montgomery County's Intellectual Development Disabilities Commission and Community Engagement Review Board, currently serves as Vice President of Autism on the Go, and is the first LGBTQIA plus and non-binary president of the American Outlaws DC chapter. And we mentioned Jake lives with mitochondrial disease, ADHD, and autism, and brings a perspective shaped by chronic illness, queerness, disability, government advocacy, health media, and building communities from scratch. And I don't even feel like I scratched the surface here. But Jake, welcome to Mark My Words. How you doing today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And I know you mentioned at the top before I hit record
Mhm.
that you were at a Flyers game and you were yelling and rooting them on. So if Jake's voice sounds a little scratchy, that's probably why. But I think they are in good enough shape to inform, educate, and maybe entertain as well.
Yeah. Great job on the intro, by the way. I'll make one
Thank you.
correction for the record. So, former chief operating officer for the Talk About a company. I am in between figuring out what I want to do. CEO of too many things, but not take on another company yet. Although maybe a new one that I'm starting, possibly. But yeah. I mean, it's funny you introduced it that way because for the first time ever. Actually, like a couple days ago, I sat down and I was like, I kind of want to look at all the things I've ever like done in my life, like, and I ended up with like a 42-page PDF of just like everything. It's the first time I've ever done that, like, because I was like, I've done a lot for a 32-year-old, not by choice always, and it was both scary and really encouraging to see it all written out. So I think your intro was really good, like, spot on.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that I did pretty good with that because as I was getting ready to do this episode, I always put pressure on myself with the intro. I like to just kind of show that I've done my homework a little bit, but I was like, oh man, they are involved in a lot of stuff. So I did catch that you mentioned that you wrapped up your CEO duties on to talk about a company. I'm like, I'm just throwing it in there as current anyway, just in case. But I'm glad that you summed that up.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it was a really like good time. I so one of my jobs, like as chief operating officer, I got to, help a lot of people. I got to learn from a really amazing chief executive officer who gave me a ton of life skills and a ton of leadership experience, like leading into the next chapter of my life. It's just I wanted to move on to the next thing, right? And that's fine, but don't get me wrong, like I absolutely love my work there. And like I was telling you, you guys, like at the top, so you had mentioned you feel bad kind of sometimes because like it's a chronic thing, and I was telling you, well, don't like all that lived experience, all those medical things, all the things I've done have helped shape me, who I am, both like as a person, but also in business, right? Like I would not be as empathetic, I would not be as able to relate to people, I would not be as good as I am at what I do, or the person I am, if not for the life I've lived.
and I'm glad that you mentioned empathy, especially because I feel like with me being born with a rare syndrome, I was born with something called Opus G, BBB, I think three B's, BBB syndrome, or I don't know, I feel like I said one less or one more, I don't know, BBB syndrome. So, but what people see and hear is like cleft lip and palate. There's a lot more to it. It's like a package deal. But I know for me, I feel like, not to weigh it against the rest of the world. But I definitely, just based on my experiences, I feel like I am a little more empathetic than others. I won't measure that exactly. A lot of people, but it's something that I know that you can probably speak to, that you just, when you have to go through certain things, especially physical, it's like, you just learn to look at the world in a little bit of a different way. And I know that from an early age, you learned about your condition, you lived through that, you had parents. I know I had parents who viewed things a certain way and didn't have the experience of having any kind of condition like I had. So you kind of like were raised, I'm guessing, in like a certain way. I really felt that connection, at least when I went through your bio, that, you just see things a little bit differently. I know I do.
Yeah. I mean, so I think that any person with a chronic illness will tell you offhand that especially if they're the oldest child, right? And there are like the other your brothers, like because my other brothers have the same condition I have. Um, when a kid is born, you don't get a manual when the kid is completely normal. You definitely don't get a manual when the kid is dealing with something like a mitochondrial disease. Um, I will preface this by saying I have nothing but respect for my mother and love and appreciation for the job that she did as a single mother raising three boys with mitochondrial diseases. Like, honest to God, don't know how she did it. That being said, as the firstborn, there was a lot of helicopter parenting, a lot of, black and white, a lot of overprotection, a lot of, trying to figure it out and stuff that I wasn't allowed to do, my brothers were allowed to do. And so there was kind of a lot of consternation there. But I think that is kind of the story of most parents' relationships with their children if they have chronic illnesses, where my mom and I are fundamentally different. She's very type A, like it's correct or it's wrong. It doesn't matter if you get the job done if it's not done the right way. I'm very, there's a start line and a finish line. I don't care how you get to the finish line, just get to the freaking finish line. I'll be proud of you when you get there. And so we have like diametrically different worldviews, which is fine, because that's what makes us human, right? But definitely, yeah, I think that, you know, that's just kind of like the chronic illness parent story. But it definitely helped shape my life. I mean, again, for me, I learned how to advocate for myself. I learned a lot of things that I may not have learned quickly, like, but for, right? Like, there's a certain level of, you know, sitting in the ER when you're like 14 thinking you're having a heart attack, but it turned out to be a kidney stone that you don't really understand unless you've been there. There's a certain level of like dark trauma humor when you can literally speak full on ER nurse with the nurses and they like literal generic names like, hey, look, I need ondansetron in the IV. You need to slow push this. I need a 22 gauge in my arm because like my IV doesn't like it, otherwise. And if they're doing a CT scan, you probably need to come up because they're gonna push contrast quickly. Like that's not normal person conversation in the ER, right? Like that's okay. You've been here a few times, right? And so like all kids with chronic illnesses and all people who have grown up with them, all of my friends, or a lot of them also, have some version of like either autism or a chronic illness. So it's not just like you don't just learn to advocate for yourself, you learn to advocate for your friends when they can't advocate for themselves and vice versa, right? Like it's weirdly a lot of convertible life skills from this lived experience translate into pretty much anything business, personal life, relationships. Everything I had to go through there has translated to benefit me in some way or another, like in my adult life. Don't get me wrong, I still struggle with stuff too, but I will openly be the first one to say that. But like, life is about making mistakes and learning from them and not making the same mistake twice. And as long as you're not making the same mistake twice the exact same way, then you're doing it correctly. That's what I tell everybody who I work with is literally, look, I expect you to make mistakes. That is like, if you're not making a mistake, I'm going to question like what it is exactly you're doing. Cause like the human experience is learning from your mistakes and not repeating the exact same thing twice. And I guess kind of I got a head start on that because I had to.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. And first of all, I can relate to being in a hospital and just having a different, I guess, perspective and not necessarily like it's just a different mindset when you're so used to going into the hospital, dealing with, surgeries or needles or whatever. And I know I could definitely relate to your perspective because I had a lot of stuff done with my teeth a few years back. I just needed new teeth up top, and they literally got out like the jaws of life hammering on my mouth. And I'm just like, this is cool. Like, it's not the most fun thing to go through, but it's not. Especially when I try to tell the story, people are like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, it's just something I had to do, and you know, you learn how to be resourceful, and it sounds to me like you might have learned, and certainly if you're about 15 years or so younger than me, you learned a lot earlier on than I did that all of these skills that you learned from the path that you've been living uh, could be applied to something like entrepreneurship. And I can relate to your perspective as far as like, no regrets. But I do, that's one of the regrets that I have is not getting into entrepreneurship sooner because it seems like many, if not all of us, especially those of us that I've had on this show, we all kind of have that common thread, that common like passion, resourcefulness, just that thing that I almost can't define, but I keep making an attempt to define. And I feel like you have that, and I'd be just curious to hear your story about like just especially transitioning from high school to the grown up world. Uh, what were you thinking as far as like what you wanted to do? Because I know you're a DJ, so I'm guessing you probably had some passion for music. And what were you thinking as far as like being an adult? And you can certainly plug in uh, anything with mitochondrial disease because I listened to another appearance that you were on. I learned some things from that, and it sounds like the lifespan of somebody with mitochondrial disease is not like too long. And I'll let you speak to all that. You can correct me, but I'm just setting it up for you to go.
All right. So let's break this down. First, we'll do the business thing, and then we'll do the meta thing.
Okay.
So I've often said that the word regret is really not like something that the human consciousness should dwell on, right? Because if you're dwelling in the past and you're dwelling on the future, you're not living in the now. And as a business person, that's a really bad place to be. Because if you're regretting all the things you didn't do or you could have done, you're not really focusing on what you're doing now. And your company needs you really to live in the now. Because if you're not, then you are woefully thinking about all the things you've done in the past that were wrong and all the things that could go wrong in the future. And that's just not how it is. So when I hear people say things like, I regret getting into it sooner, well, my response is, so then work twice as hard now to make up for it because you can't go back in time to get that time back. You can, however,
No.
work your ass off twice as hard to make up for it. And so when we talk about like what I did coming out of school, I had no freaking idea. Like, I mean, I went to college, but like my IEP was set up in a way where I was never really challenged in high school. I got straight A's. I got like a 4.2 because like no one really ever challenged me. Homework was non-existent. I didn't do it, and they didn't care because I was getting perfect scores on literally everything, and it bored me. If I'm correcting the teachers in the school, probably no one's going to give me a hard time. That's kind of where we were. College is a very different story. I did fine, but through no fault of my own, like, it just wasn't for me. I'm going to go back one day, but not yet. Then, my dad was a DJ at Studio 54. I always had a passion for music, but I wasn't really ever sure if with my condition I could do it or whatnot. I went and purchased my own controller. Turned out I was pretty good at it. Put in an insane amount of work. I mean, like practicing 6 hours a day, every day for a year. Eventually got an opportunity, like out of nowhere by complete accident. And the promoter was, you know, It was like I came out of that set and I told the promoter, okay, I was like, it's great. He's like, no, that was like one of the worst hits I heard. But you have something I can't teach, which is a passion for this, and you have an X factor which I can't teach. Show up here tomorrow at my house and we will practice every day for the next however long it takes. You're going to be the new opening DJ for this party. That person then went on to book me as the headliner for their parties and so on and so forth, right? But it was literally every weekend I was playing an opening set. Every weekend I was learning something. Every day of the week I was playing for 2 or 3 hours on his equipment, like literally just absorbing, absorbing, absorbing. And that was my life because I needed to put in the work to get there. Eventually, I got really, really good. Like, I mean, really, really good. And, it became a situation where some of the parties in my like scene, they only want people who are gay male presenting, and that's just not me. I'm not willing to compromise who I am for anyone. Not for a job, not for a DJ set, not for anyone. And if you're telling me my music is good enough, but you don't like the way I look, I'm telling you, well, insert choice word, I'm just not going to play for you. And so I went to my brother by choice. I said, all right, I've had enough of this. Let's start our own event. He's like, okay. And so we did. Like my party event started literally out of a need of, I got really tired of people telling me I just didn't look the right way, but I played good enough. And now those same people try to book me, and I basically tell them, yeah, it's double for you. Like, if you want me to come play your party now, it's double than what I charge somebody else. Because if you didn't want me then, even though I was good enough because I didn't look the right way, you can pay me double, and I'm still going to dress the way I would have dressed the first time because it's just who I am. I am from Philly. I am stubborn. It is what you get. That being said, everybody who works at our DJ like party brand is autistic or disabled or trans. People who don't normally get to work in nightlife, people of color, we put like a lot of emphasis on that. Which means that if you put 20 people in a room who are all autistic and tell them to run a business together, you're gonna have some arguments, you're gonna have some fights, you're gonna have some drag them out, scream them out brawls, right? But you're also gonna have some really cool moments. All of that kind of led into other business experience. Like, as I got older, I was always involved in politics, like from a young age, like 12, 13 years old. I learned very quickly, like, this is something I'm good at. This is something I really love. Um, I'm going to do this because, screw it. At which point, as I got older, I started finding my voice a bit more. Coming out of high school, I was not the person I am now, right? Like, I was really, like, I wrote a book, right? I would not have believed after high school that I would have ever written a book. I was always told I couldn't write. I was always told, like, as someone with autism is, I was never going to be able to, like, be a great writer and I shouldn't bother, but I could be a great speaker. Like, and I kind of, as I've gotten into my 30s, I'm like, why? Like, why not? Like, why can't I?
That
Like,
doesn't make any
what?
sense to me at all.
Well, and that's the
Yeah.
thing is that like high school me was always told the things I can't do, but
Mhm.
like 30-year-old me doesn't want to focus on the things I can't do. Let me try. And if I can't do it, I'll find a way. Um, and that's kind of like my life story. You look at the things I've done. The things I've done haven't always been necessarily out of like choice. I haven't done all the things I've done in my life because I wanted to do all of these things necessarily. It's out of reasons sometimes out of my control. I had no choice. Like, you become an advocate for people like me when you are a person like me, especially for myself, but also for those who can't show up to speak for themselves. Like, it's personal. You do things that I do when you have stake in the game, not necessarily because you think it's the most fun thing in the world, but because if you don't, the alternative is you might be like dead because somebody passes something that really isn't great for this community because they never asked us. You do what I do to show other people like me that they can do the things that they want to do, even if people are telling them they can't, and I'm the living proof that you can. And so, like, my motivation, my plan out of high school was literally, I have no plan. And now I'm kind of figuring it out late in life. But like, it's one of those things that if I did not go through all of those like struggles and all of those not figuring it out, I would have never landed here. And it's weird to say that sometimes you have to fail and you have to make mistakes in order to learn, but that is the truth. If you were always getting everything right, you're never learning. Think of it like college basketball, right? Like look at the women's game. Take UConn for example. If you go perfect every single game of a season and every single year, you never have an opportunity to correct things because you never see them in the way that you can see them if you lose because you can just sweep it under the rug as it's a win. Don Staley explained this as like at South Carolina that that loss in the season to Oklahoma gave them an opportunity to actually get their players to understand that they had to correct things, which is why, although they finished runner up, they got to the championship. Losing isn't fun, failing isn't fun, but it is a requirement to grow. And it like that's just life. And then you equate that to my medical condition, like, yeah, I mean, everybody knows the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cells. Like, okay, we all remember that from biology. I explain it like this. If I give you a bag of a billion jelly beans and say pick out the same flavor twice, you're probably not going to be able to do that. Congratulations. That's what treating my condition is like. No one person has the exact same anything because it's cellular. It doesn't function like leukemia. It doesn't function like diabetes where we expect it to go a certain way. It's cellular. So every person who has it's going to have different things at different times, and we don't know what because it's in everything in the body. Some days I feel like I can run a marathon. Some days I feel like I cannot walk, and you never really know what you're going to get. Uh, Life expectancy is varied now. Like we've learned a lot more, but the reality of the situation is I've lost a lot of friends. I've lost a lot of people I care about. And one of the things that drives me to do the things I do and work as hard as I do is because they are no longer on this earth to do it and to work as hard for themselves. And so I carry a little bit of them with me because, like, every victory I get is, in my mind, a victory for them because they would want me to. And I can't choose to give up, though sometimes I really, 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 really want to. And I do, honestly, for your listeners, if you're listening, like, listen to what I am telling you. I cannot stress this enough. I get depressed as hell. Just like for the record. Like content warning, but very adamant on this conversation here. I struggle with a life-ending chronic illness, and sometimes I just look around and be like, you know what? I've done enough on this rock. I've really given everything I can. I don't really want to be here anymore. And then I remember my friends who are it, and I can't. I can't throw in the towel. It's not an option for me. So, not an option for me, not an option for you. We do what we do because we're good at it, and we know we're good at it.
Well, I'll tell you what, the spirit that you have for just why you do, what motivates you, what drives you, that is what this show, I feel, is all about. And that's exactly what I want to capture, just as far as like, just that passion and the why, why are you doing this? And as you were talking, so I feel like for me to do this show, it's I had to overcome a lot of like limiting beliefs about. I tell a story all the time about for years. I think that deep inside, I really wanted to do something like this because I majored in television production. I've worked in the field for 20 some years here, and it's been all behind the scenes except for what I'm doing just on my own time with Mark My Words. But I always felt like I can't do it because who's gonna want to listen to me? Who's gonna want to watch me? Nobody wants to listen to my voice. And it took for some really awesome people that I met at networking events about a decade ago who were like, hey, you should start like making content. You should post on LinkedIn or whatever. And at first I was like, oh, yeah, right. But I eventually started to listen and it really like changed me. It changed my perspective and it kind of like led me to today. And even though my why for doing this is largely to not only talk to all the different entrepreneurs, hear their stories, and I know it's a lot of inspiration for me. I know I'm trying to motivate others because for years my focus was let's climb the corporate ladder. I'm going to prove myself. I'm going to overcompensate at work, and people are going to see how awesome I am. I'm going to get promoted. And I did have one promotion in there, but I mean, life doesn't really go as like you think it might or like you plan or whatever. And I just kind of learned over the course of time that I need to do like more for my own fulfillment and my own good. And the missing link, I guess, where I'm trying to come home with all of this is you have a lot of people in your community who, some, it sounds like you're not even with us anymore, and they still drive you and inspire you. And for me to be somebody with, forget about the syndrome because that is like super rare, but something even less rare, cleft lip and palate. I had one person on this show that I just happened to know through networking who had cleft lip and palate. I have very rarely even met anybody who has anything that I go through. So when I listen to what it means to you to have those kind of bonds and community, and I think about my own life, it's like a ghost. It's like there's nobody. And I know that's not true because I know I get enough feedback and understand that there's a lot of people out there that I think I'm inspiring and helping and, just getting them to see something different. But I do wish sometimes that I at least like knew a few people who kind of knew what it was like to be me. And I really don't. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I really admire that, and it's unfortunate, but I admire it, and you're getting me motivated just listening to you talk. Frankly,
The one thing I can say is that uh like sometimes it's really not by choice, right? Like it's some of my best friends are just no longer living, right? And it sucks. And I miss them every day. But I know what they would be doing right now if they were here. And so it's hard to explain. It's one of those like, you know, it drives me to an extent, yes, but it also two of my friends killed themselves when I was in high school, right? Like that was incredibly difficult for me. And I always lived with this feeling of I wish I had done more. I don't know what more I could have done, but it's something we all live with. Um, and I don't use their memory to be like, this is what's fueling me. I use their memory to make sure that no one else ever has to go through it if I can avoid it. I, it's what if they felt like they had an outlet? What if they felt like they had work? What if they felt like, a condition they had wasn't going to be the end all be all? What if they heard a podcast like this and they saw that there are people like them out there doing things? What if anything? And so someone asked me the other day, like, what do you get out of going on these podcasts and being a guest? But what I get is if I reach one person, singular, who is anywhere even remotely like us, right? Even just like the tiniest bit. And this gives them a sliver of hope or it gives them the kick in the butt they need. That's a win for me. My motto in life is live each day and make the world a little bit better than it was the night before. And that's not always doable. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you leave the world a little bit worse, actually. But that is life. And, you just learn to realize that you are not always just doing the things that you're doing for you. You're doing them for your community. You're sometimes doing them for people who are no longer here. You're doing them to make people who may not even be alive proud, doing it to make yourself proud, but also like you're doing it for yourself too. And it all kind of comes together. And like one of the things you said was that, um, you sometimes wish you would like knew like the impact you were making. Well, I'm telling you, you're making an impact. Like you didn't have to respond to me. You didn't have to look at my story and be like, oh man, I really want to go down this rabbit hole of my listeners. You saw this and immediately jumped on it, and you chose to take a step in a direction that you were always thought like you couldn't, right? Because the system always told us we couldn't. And yet here you are hosting a podcast, yourself with a disability, with someone else with a disability, with two people who were always told we could never ever do this. And here is the living proof that we can. And my response to you would be we never ever really know who's listening. We never ever really know the impact we're having, but just know you're having it. And more than anything, you're having it for yourself, and that's enough.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, it's taken me a lot of time to really like learn and understand that. And I know that there's some people, and I'll even use TikTok as an example, where I sometimes will go to like somebody's live. Like I love going and checking out the live creators. And there was one that I'll never forget. They were getting like pretty good numbers, around 100 people in a lot of their lives. And they had a day where there were only like 32, I think. They're like, oh, I only have 32 people. I'm going to end this live. And that's coming from somebody on the other end watching. I'm like, man, if I get like 5 people, I'm stoked. Like, you're going to leave 32 people? What are you doing? You know? And I value, like, when even and I haven't gone live in a little while, but even if I have like one person, there's a good interaction or whatever, and there, just any opportunity that I have to tell my story, and especially for those who aren't believing that they can do some of the things that you and I are doing, that's an opportunity, whether it's hitting send on a podcast episode, going live on TikTok, whatever it is, they're all opportunities for me to remind people that, hey, I have every reason in the world. Like, I think I said this on an episode the other day. I could just click on the Leave Studio End Session for All button right now, just based on everything I've been through. And other than for wasting an hour of your time, it would probably be okay. But I feel like there's a reason. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I do this, but that's like probably one of the biggest reasons is to not only reach people like me who might be having limiting beliefs and doubts about whether they can do this or anything that they want to do, but I also like just planting that seed of entrepreneurship because like I said, I'm not Madonna. I'm never going to be like absolutely no regrets. That's not how I think. Because like, I do have some regrets. Everything you said earlier is fantastic and is certainly good wisdom and advice. But yeah, I would totally have regrets if I can do this or, you know, whatever. And I just want to send that message that you don't want to get to a point where, you know, 6 years down the road, you're still not doing something that you thought about back then. I use six because that's when I started this podcast. I mean, imagine if I waited till now and this was like my second episode. Like, look at all that time I would have wasted. So I'm just trying to plant some of those seeds for people, and hopefully it helps and inspires.
So let me say this. I definitely have regrets in life. The
Yeah.
thing is not dwelling on them or using them to do something, right? So it's totally fine and it actually good to look at something and be like, man, I wish I would have done that. Screw it, I'm gonna do it now. Like that's taking an action with the regret. So you regretted not doing something for however long, and then you were like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna sit on this until, you know, like the ride is over. I'm gonna do something with it. That's taking a moment, right, of regret and doing what I think you're trying to do by planting the seed and then taking something out of it. So I think of entrepreneurship like this. I had to become an entrepreneur at 6 years old because I had to become my own business about knowing my body. I had to become my own CEO of my body. I had to start telling everybody about what my condition was, and I had to start selling myself as a business development plan, basically to everybody, understanding about what I was. And I had to do it well, or I wasn't getting the treatment I needed. I needed my friends to understand it. That was a sales pitch. I needed literally everyone to understand what I needed. That was me setting up like literal teams and support systems. All of these things I did as a kid and a teenager, that was literally entrepreneurship. You as a person are, quite frankly, a business. If you want to put it into simple terms, think about it like this. If you have a chronic illness, you're a really complex business, but if you don't, you're still a business. You are constantly selling yourself. That is a business. You are constantly putting together these resumes. That is a sales pitch. All these things that CEOs do that people think they can't do, you're already doing it. You just don't know that you're doing it. So if the only thing holding you back from chasing your dream is, well, I don't know if I can, what do you have to lose? Like, what is the downside? That's what I always ask myself when I started doing these things. If I go after this and it doesn't work, okay, great. On to the next thing. But at least I tried and I know and I don't have to wonder what if. So if the only thing someone out there listening to this is like, well, I could never do that. First off, you can. Just completely clear, you can. Second off, you absolutely can, because if I can, you can. Cannot stress that enough. And like, what do you have to lose? Even if it doesn't work out, you're still going to gain something from it for future opportunities. And that's kind of my point of part of life is trying things don't always work out. And you only, no one is born a CEO. No one is literally started their life as having all the answers to being a CEO. Every single one of those people tried things that didn't work out to learn how to not make those mistakes again. Don't be the person who didn't try. Try things and become a CEO.
Well, first of all, I love the way you put everything about being the CEO of your own body and relating it to just it. I guess where I want to go with this is recently over the past year, I've been dealing with an issue. My primary care physician put me on a statin that wound up just jacking up like my sleep and just a lot of other things. And because I have like a rare, like I tried to like explain to them, okay, there could be consequences with my tummy if, you give me this and I take it every other day. Might not be good. They're like, oh, no, you'll be fine. No, it wasn't fine. And I'm just getting myself back to normal, but here's where I became the CEO of my body. I went on ChatGPT and actually just started inquiring, just say, hey, this is what I'm up against, this is what's happening. And it actually really helped to right the ship with what I was going through, and I'm actually like I feel better overall than I have in a while. I learned things about myself that I didn't even know, and I don't know where they were pulling information to advise me or whatever. And I'm not saying that ChatGPT or AI is gonna help everybody in that way because they get a lot of stuff wrong, but uh when you said taking like just to take control and being the CEO of your own body, that was the first thing I thought of. And if I hadn't done that and just said, well, I'm gonna go to a doctor and shoot best shot, they may or may not understand. I may still be pretty uncomfortable, but that's all something that I think people like you and I, we just learn. And it's a game changer. And it's amazing to just have that conversation and get, hopefully, get people thinking about being the CEO of their own body. So,
I mean, you kind of have to be, right? I mean,
yeah.
because like that was one of the things I didn't, and you didn't. We didn't get a choice, right? Like because the alternative, if I wasn't, was okay. Well, you're gonna give me this thing that I really don't want, right? Like I think of it like every time I'm arguing with a doctor and trying to convince them, I translate that skill into business, quite literally. Okay, this is just a negotiation. Okay, this is me talking to a client about what I need from them and then what happens if they don't deliver it. Like, okay, this is the consequence of that. Same concept. I am telling you what happens if you give me this medication. If you do it, well, okay, but like, this is like, it's no different. It's literally just, in this case, one is my body as a business, and the other one is my actual business. I just learned it earlier, and there's no reason that somebody else can't. But let me tell you, around day 6 of laying in a hospital bed, you really start to think of things differently. And, you know, they would have never found out that I had an iron deficiency 6 days ago in my bone marrow, but for me telling them to do the freaking biopsy. But also, I had to tell them to give me Versed in the OR and laugh at the OR and be like, listen, I can't move or you're going to paralyze me. So please give me Versed in twilight sleep or you're not getting to my bone marrow. And that's the type of thing where you have to be willing to draw lines in the sand in your medical body, in the real world, and also in business. And so that's kind of where, like, I think people always are like, well, I could never do this or as like a business or anything. And my response is legitimately, why not? Like, why not you? Because if not you, someone else is eventually going to do it. So why not you? I've reached a place now where I'm probably launching a new business because I want to get paid what I feel like I'm worth. And quite frankly, give other people opportunities and not be taken advantage of from a business sense. I'm really good at what I do. I know I'm really good at what I do. I have an incredibly stupid long list of skills and a really powerful brain with autism. If people aren't going to value me for what that is, screw it, I'll do it myself.
Well, unfortunately, we're getting a little short on time. I feel like we've barely even scraped the surface here. But before I ask you how people can reach you and find you, I have to ask one thing that I've really been wanting to ask. With you having mitochondrial disease, going through all of the issues with energy, and then you're still an entrepreneur and you're traveling, how, because I don't travel, I have a very cushy life. I sometimes work long hours, but I work mostly like from home. I go to the office a little bit, but I have a very cushy life. I don't travel. I have all the time and resources to energy, energize myself. But for somebody like you who is like, an entrepreneur and you're fighting all these battles, how do you other than obviously going to the hospital and all the other stuff, how do you maintain your energy and uh how do you just maintain the focus to keep the ball rolling?
The short answer is I have no idea. Real talk. But the real answer is very simple. First off, when I get tired or I feel like there's not anything left, I think of my friends who are no longer here, and immediately I go right back to work. My friends who are here get really mad at me for the amount of stuff I do because I'm working my body way overtime. But the way I see it, I don't know how long I have on this planet. No one really does, but me especially. And so I made a deal with myself pretty early on that come hell or high water, I was going to experience everything I wanted to experience because, you know, whether I worked my body to its literal end or whether I lived to 80 and did nothing, both results were the same. I would rather the first one. Um, and so that's the first answer. The second answer is whenever I'm really, really tired or feel like I can't do something, I think of my friends who quite literally can't be there to do it. Whenever I'm speaking in front of a legislative anything and I'm like just burnt out, the first thing that comes into my head is this is so much more important than me. This is this is this is everybody else who can't be here to do this. This is like it sounds weird to carry that all the time, but I do. I do. I can't not. It's an autism thing. It's a me thing. That is what drives me. I have a really, really, really weird schedule. I mean, like I am working and I am sleeping. I am working and I am sleeping, and it is an hour here and an hour there. But it is a, if I had $1 for every time a doctor told me that I shouldn't like still be functioning, or like I'm a modern medical enigma at this point. They don't know how I'm like alive. I would be a
Yeah.
freaking billionaire. And that's the reality of the situation. I think more than anything though, it's a will to make success even when everyone thinks I'm a failure. I think it's a I am not willing to accept that. It's a like if you're from the Northeast, like you are built differently and we don't accept no. Okay, you don't think I can? Hold my beer and watch me. Like
Yeah.
it's literally I used to this will be good for your listeners. Don't do this, by the way. This is a really bad way to accomplish this goal, but I used to have a poster board above my bed. The last thing I saw tonight at night, and the first thing I went to bed was literally every time someone told me I couldn't, or I wouldn't, or I couldn't ever accomplish, or I would never do this, or I'd never be that, or I was a failure at this, I would take this shit and I would like write it on a post-it note. And I would stick it on the poster board. The first and last thing I saw when I went to bed every single night was every single person who ever said I couldn't do something, and that drove me because that thing is a more motivating thing than a bunch of people telling you you can never do X and then literally seeing the look on their face when you do X better than they do.
Yeah. No, I fought my battles with that one, and believe me, I have a list that is just infinite when it comes to people who didn't believe in me or, you know, made fun of me or etc. Or and I know for a long time that was something that kind of drove me, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it still. I mean, of course I do, but I mean, it definitely functions as a good motivator for sure. Kind of like
So
I
the second
am
part of that
motivated.
story, Mark.
Okay, okay,
So now the first thing and the last thing that's you to go to bed is a similar thing, but it's every single person who told me I could or I would, or every time someone tells me I've impacted their lives or have made a difference. Now that is the first thing I see and the last thing I see when I go to sleep. It is pictures of my friends who are no longer here. It is all the people who have come to me and said, hearing you on X has literally helped me do Y because what started as a motivation from all the people who I wanted to prove wrong has turned into the motivation for all the people who I've helped by doing it. And that's kind of my point. In this little story, it's a full journey. I went from doing things out of spite and anger to doing things because I know it's helping and for me. And that is so much more fulfilling. Yes, like you always hear that voice, right? That never goes
yeah.
away. But you hold on to those moments of success more, and it's so much more enlightening.
Well, I'll tell you what. The second part of my story that I was getting into is very similar, and it took for me until I got on Facebook because I had a dream back when high school reunions were still like a thing. I was like, I'm gonna go back to like my 10-year reunion. I'm gonna be a baller. And everybody's gonna be like, I'm so sorry for treating you that way or for X, Y, and Z. And I thought when Facebook became a thing that I would hear from people. Because, as we get older, we, change our perspective and etc. None of that stuff ever happened. And there was a point where I woke up and said, you know what? I have to do whatever I'm doing for myself. I mean, yeah, obviously great to, have the really positive side that you experience where, you're feeling the fulfillment of others. And I do too, don't get me wrong. But I think the first thing that I had to learn was to do for myself and find the fulfillment within and not worry about all that other stuff. So I learned that because nobody ever reached out and, like people just aren't like that. Like, I know that I wasn't perfect. I'm sure there's a few people I think about that I'm like, I wish that I could, like, just tell them, I wish it would have been different. But I'm sure a lot of people think that way. Nobody's going to be like, just calling me up or messaging me and apologizing like that. It doesn't really work that way 99% of the time. So, long story short, you just gotta kind of come around and do what you do for you and hopefully for the betterment of others, which I think is what we're both striving to do. And we somehow, between me interrupting your story and coming back to my own, we kind of got together pretty nicely to the point where I can hopefully ask you, how can we find you? How can we work with you? And add whatever else you want to add to that.
Yeah, I'll touch on your story briefly, and then I'll do all the plug and stuff, and I'll say, really simply put, that's basically it, right? The lesson of my life has been I became the most successful version of me when I stopped trying to seek the approval of everybody other than me. Like
No.
my entire life from age, 4 to age 26 was trying to get like the approval of my family, trying to make them proud, trying to make everybody else proud. And then eventually I realized why. Like I'm just I realized that at a certain point you're just never gonna get it. If they're gonna give it, they're gonna give it. And at a certain point you do it for you and do it for the people you can help. So I think that's the important lesson. And the second thing, which you touched on, it's important. Nobody's the same. You can't listen to this and try to be me. That won't work. I can't listen to somebody else and try to be them. You can take the lessons, but no one's ever gonna do exactly what I did or exactly what you did. And that's kind of life. As where to find me, like you can look me up on pretty much anything. A Google search will probably find me. I'll add you on Facebook. I'll add you on LinkedIn, X, like SoundCloud. I'm an open book. I just like, I love what I do. I love my life. I wouldn't change anything, even when I hate everything about my life some days. I wouldn't ever. Mark, if you gave me a shot and gave me an option and said two pills, keep everything that's happened to you or get rid of your condition tomorrow, I'd take the first one. I don't want to live life without these things that people see as problems. I don't see autism and mitochondrial disease as a disadvantage. I think see it as an advantage. I'm playing 4D chess when everybody else is playing checkers. I wouldn't change a freaking thing about me. And I think that that's great. And I appreciate your time and your listeners' time. And I think this has been an amazing conversation. But yeah, it's Jake Didinsky on pretty much everything. If you're looking for my TJ friend, it's Jake Maxwell. But I have a feeling most of your audience probably isn't going to go searching for my music. But if you need a DJ, I'm your guy. But most importantly, if you want to work with me, and this is the biggest important thing that people need to know, I'm not the person to call if you want a yes man. I'm not the person to call if you are looking for someone to like just like let you make mistakes. I am the person you call if you want someone who's going to work incredibly hard and you want to work with people who are going to work incredibly hard for you, but also tell you the truth of what you're doing is kind of stupid because like I don't have a filter and that's kind of what you get with me and that's honestly what you would want in my opinion is I'm going to work twice as hard as everybody else, but I'm also going to tell you if what we're doing is dumb.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are the person I will call to have a great podcast episode and a great conversation. This was amazing. I love your perspective on life, and I wish you continued success and fulfillment with everything you're doing. You're making a huge impact, and I really appreciated this was such a quick turnaround for sure to get this episode recorded, and this was a great time. Thank you, Jake, for being on Mark My Words today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, that ties up pretty nicely. I am your host, Mark Schmidt. This was my guest, Jake Didinsky, and you just listen to Mark My Words. Thanks a lot, and I will see you soon with another episode. Bye for now. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.